Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this week's episode of Soul Conversation. I'm really, really happy because I don't know. Yes, it was actually 1 week ago, which is so wild. I was introduced to today's guest, Bill, through Leland, that you have hopefully listened to like twice. We will have another one publishing, another episode publishing soon as well. And last Monday, I had a conversation with him and he was like, "Oh, you have to meet my friend Bill here." And then on WhatsApp, it was just a video like saying hi, and something within me energetically like shifted. It was a recognition. This is why I love the way when we start to actually remembering from our soul, because it's just there. Like for me, it's kind of an energy that is just solid and a knowing. So welcome, Bill. That was my
Thank you. Good
introduction.
morning. No, I mean that's what I love about this whole awakening that the world is going through, right? We have
Yeah,
these moments of magic, and I personally believe all magic is science that we don't
yeah,
understand, but I
me
always
too.
say that that does not make it any less magical.
No,
If you can't look out at the galaxy and above us, the Milky Way, and say that is magical, then you're just not human.
yeah,
And so the science of the collective and this shift in energy into this more scientific process of approaching um, our awareness, our connectivity, not only to humanity, but to the universe and to everything around us,
yeah,
is brilliant. And when we have these moments that are so sentient and so tangible, of energetic reconnection, right?
yeah,
I mean, I believe that you and I were particles hanging out in space somewhere and said,
yeah,
"Hey, I'm going to incarnate." And somewhere along that line, like, let's hook up and hang out again.
yeah, for
And you're
sure,
like, yeah, yeah, we'll talk about it then. We'll have some good conversations. All right, I'll see you in a minute.
yeah, for sure,
and
for
so
sure.
when you have that moment that really was planned in the light, in space, in that energetic realm,
Yeah,
and it meets that tangible moment, it's magic.
it is my. And for everyone who's listening, I love your like the background, the colors, the art, everything. Can you just also share where you are, where you are in the world right now?
Yeah, I'm in Bocas del Toro, Panama, which is an archipelago in the Caribbean, off of Panama,
Mm,
and landed here. I'm facilitating a meditation center, to put it the most simply.
mm,
It's on one of the remote islands here. It's called the Haven. I have a nonprofit called the House of Energy Consciousness, and my main goal, through my path, along my process, and after some really intense work, I realized that what I didn't have and what
mm,
I heard from the people I encountered was the fear of the stigma society still has on holistic ideals,
mm.
and the unavailability of a space that they felt safe
Yeah.
to have conversations like this. And so my number one goal in creating this nonprofit was to create digital, physical, mental, psychological space that is
Mm,
safe for anyone to have these discussions, right?
mm.
Because these are, we are all going through this together,
Yes.
and we can evolve in a very conscious way, energetically conscious way, more efficiently as a collective than as the individual.
Yeah.
But we need to feel safe to do that. And the world, the Western world, the modern world does not feel safe. At least for me, it did not feel safe. It did
No.
not feel like a place where I could be myself.
Mm.
And so I went on a journey to find some place to build what is now called the Haven, and ended up after about a 2 year journey that started in Peru and included a 2 month trip down the Amazon River, and very very amazing journey. Ended up here in this archipelago and found space on one of the remote islands, like I said, and that's where I and Leland is kind of doing the same thing. He has his technique, and on a different island has a similar project going, and that's what that's affirmation that I found the right place, because that's what the energy of Bocas del Toro is becoming. It's a
Yeah.
surf haven, and there's always going to be surfers here, so there's always going to be the surf and the party lifestyle on the main island, but
Yeah.
the outer islands are still mostly indigenous, still using literally still using plant medicine, and day to day, have chickens and go fishing and pick fruit and vegetables from the jungle. The
Yeah.
islands are still natural,
Yeah.
and so it's a really really beautiful place to for this to be happening, and I think it's happening not just with Leland and I, but there are many other facilitators
Yeah.
within that holistic practitioner. Uh, what do you call that venue?
Yeah, but it
I
looks
don't know. I don't know
beautiful.
what to call it, metaphysics or holistic meta.
Yeah.
I don't know what the right term is, but I think everyone knows what we're referring to.
Yes. And I mean, I seen the picture, and when you also showed me where you and Leland take the coffee in the morning, I haven't told you yet. I actually started to look at flights and see
Oh,
how I could,
awesome!
yeah, how from Sweden you had to take like one connection, do you say connection flight? Do you say that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And how long it would take and a little bit. So I started to like,
Well, I do
mm,
know for a fact, because I have a couple of Dutch friends here, that there's a direct flight from Amsterdam to
mm.
Panama City. I don't know how that would probably a relatively short
Yeah,
flight
they
from
showed me
Stockholm, right?
Paris, but that's good to know. I'm actually going to
Yeah,
write it down.
check Amsterdam, because there's
Yep,
and it's a KLM flight, I think.
I will actually check it out because um what I also, I mean, I just can't believe it's only a week that we have,
I know.
yeah.
I know
But
but that's the amazing thing, because it's not right. It's not
no,
just a
it's
week.
not.
It's
And
been it's been an eternity. We've known each other for so long, and
yeah,
that's a reality. Like, I'm not just saying that out of allegory or hyperbole, right? I believe we, as energetic conscious beings
mm,
in the pure energy state,
mm,
we can't in this material state perceive what consciousness is like on that level, right?
yeah,
We just can't, because you can talk to everybody in the entire universe all at one time, see everything in the universe all at one time. That's a consciousness that the human brain can't even get around.
yeah,
But I truly believe in before we incarnated, we were hanging out, having
yeah,
coffee,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
drinking a little nebula juice.
Sorry, I thought it was my cat again here.
You're okay.
Um,
And
I
so, and the other part about the color, if we can talk about
yeah,
chakras for a minute, because I also, one of my favorite things to do now is tie dye. I buy all white T-shirts and tie dye, because I think that the two important things are if we're really looking at everything as energy,
yeah,
then the energy that the human form can conceive of most is light energy,
mm,
right? That's the type of energy that we most recognize.
yeah,
Colors and sunlight and everything else. Lack of light, we talk about even ourselves as in forms of lightness or darkness. And so I during my I went through a 9 week really intense meditative process that was solely my own doing. I was homeless and jobless, and why not? It
Yeah.
seems like the universe and I created this, right?
Yeah.
I didn't want to. I didn't. I was tired of being the victim,
Yeah.
right? I was tired of, and I recognized that I'd been in that modality, and the only way to shift that is to turn 90 degrees and do the opposite of what you were doing.
Yeah.
And so I just started focusing on my meditation, and it turned into this. I was only going to do a week because I wanted to learn more about the chakras, and
Mm.
there were 7 chakras. There were 7 days of the week. So on Monday, like I wore all red clothes. Anything red I tried to associate with the root chakra. Why? How does that relate to the original translation? I looked up the original translation of all the Sanskrits, and root is base or support, base support or root, or the two words base support, and then the second word means root in
Mm.
English. And on that day, just a quick note, I noticed straight away that wait a minute, all this, all the places I had gone so far that I learned things about the chakras had told me the root chakra was about security.
Mm.
This word doesn't say anything about security. This word says base and root. And that was when I first realized, started having this thought recognition of how the Western modern ideals were kind of manipulating this concept, much like we have every religion throughout
Mm.
time,
Mm.
manipulating it to make it a more of a control mechanism, right? A barbiturate, a way to give a patient something to think about that they say they can, that the practitioner says they can control. And anyway, I started thinking about the root. I'm like, well, yes, if you build a strong base and have deep roots, then your structure is going to be secure,
Yeah.
right? But that's the next step. You have to focus on the root and the base. You've got to
Yeah.
build that first. And that was one of my that day was one of my first recognitions along this journey, because it happened with every one of the 7 chakras. The seven, right? There's, I mean, especially from India tradition, there's up to 121, 128 or something
Mm.
like that, I think. But so we're talking about the 7 main ones.
Yeah.
I realized that what I had heard in the groups and places that I went so far was this modern definition of what the chakra was. However, it wasn't what the Sanskrit translation was. It was
Mm.
really fascinating.
That's
So
fascinating.
I Yeah, so I got really tied into colors, the chakras, and spirals, Fibonacci spiral. I mean, everything in this universe is spiraling, is moving. Like we see the Fibonacci spiral everywhere.
Yeah.
So that's why all the color in the tie dyes.
Yeah. It's beautiful. I would like, so the listeners get your background a little bit. I have two questions. I'm just thinking which I should start with. Yeah, let's start with the one I always ask my guest, which is who were you, Bill, when you were a child?
I was a ex- I'm a super empath.
Mm.
Let me start with that. And as a child, I was a blind, what I like to refer to as a blind super empath, right? So heavily emotional, almost seemingly out of control, very what we define as loving.
Mm.
Um, whoops. um, Very scared.
Yeah.
I slept with the lights on well into my teenage years.
Yeah.
Um, and an overall sensation of not belonging, of
Mm.
not understanding and belonging, but an intense desire to want to understand and belong.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I could go more into it than that, but I think that's, I was
Yeah.
small.
Yeah. So I would like to also, if it's okay for you, of course. I mean, you've been living in, of course, in US. I mean, you were born in US.
Yep, yep. Yeah, I
Um,
lived in the US until, I mean, I left 6 years ago.
yeah. So
And so
where
every,
share a little bit about your story there because I want to come into,
sure.
LA
Okay, so
and
I was born in North Carolina in the South and grew up in Southern Virginia. And I mean, I was also surrounded by a lot of racism. Um, where I was very much below what they call the Mason-Dixon line in the United States, which is this invisible line that supposedly divided the racist from the non-racist in the North.
yeah.
Um, which is, it exists everywhere in the U.S. Unfortunately. Right now, it's been intensified, I think, but I that was a big part of my experience.
Mm.
The town I was in, I was chased by the Ku Klux Klan when I was
Oh, yeah.
15 years old.
So,
um, it was a very divided culture. Fortunately, I grew up in a household of academians. My stepfather was a coastal geologist and worked at a teaching college, a Marine Institute teaching college. And my mom was a writer, a
mm,
science writer, and that's how she met. She was working at the same institute. And so, my weekends were dinner parties at tables of scientists,
yeah.
and even as a child, if I wanted to participate, I told you I intensely wanted to be a part of everything. I had to be able to participate in the conversation. So even as a young child, my ability to converse at a semi academic level became very very in tune because I had to because
That's why your words. I'm like, what kind of word is this? Okay, I need to. It's not. That's why. Okay,
Yeah,
I
and
get.
my mom got her master's in English, so every day there was there was constantly some English, for example, if you're not supposed to, in formal English, you're not supposed to end a sentence with a preposition. So you're not supposed to say, where is it at? You're just
Mm,
supposed to say, where is it?
okay.
And so if I ever said, where is it at? She would say, just before the at.
Get it.
So I would have those kind of little quips from her all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So language became you know, talking, communicating was a very big part of my life. And that's
Yeah.
interesting that you bring that up because I really never thought about it that way. I got trained very early. Um, I'm recognizing to communicate and to be in a moment in a conversation with somebody. And likewise, my grandfather was mayor of a really big city in North Carolina in
Mm,
the 50s. And he was very well loved in this city. And even in the 70s, when I was a child, I remember going I mean, we go to the grocery store for milk and it would take an hour and a half
mm,
because he was this person that it was amazing to me because again he was mayor in the 50s, it's now the 70s, and
mm.
we're going through this grocery store and somebody comes up to him and is like, hi Mayor Morris, how are you? And my granddad every time would be like, oh hey Frank, how's your wife Betty, and how's little Sam Jr., how's he doing, or whoever.
Mm.
He knew, like 20 years later, knew these people. And this is a big city. This isn't like a little 150 person podunk town.
No.
It was amazing to me, absolutely amazing. And I was enamored with my grandfather. I mean, that was where, I think that we all get to experience the human emotion of what we associate as unconditional love
Mm,
only a few times in our life.
mm.
And for me, it was with my granddad. It was just it
Yeah.
was beautiful. I think about it, and I love him. love it so much. I've been finding dimes actually in the street recently, which I know is my grandfather. I
Oh,
love that he's still hanging out.
yeah, of course it is. Oh my God. So, when did you, okay, this is a part I haven't figured out yet, because I know you then later on lived in LA for 18 years, I think it is.
About
It was.
18 years, yeah.
But
Yeah.
New York, when was that? I'm like, oh,
Oh, so yeah. Well,
yeah,
I mean, I started a little bit late. I'm late on everything. Like I went to a spirit animal journey and to find what your main spirit animal guide is.
yeah,
And it was a group of friends. And afterwards, the shaman's going around the group asking everybody what their animal was, and it was cool things like owls and dolphins and bears, elephants, these really cool totems. She gets to me, almost seemingly intentionally saved me for last. She's like, Bill, I'm like, snail. And everybody just laughed because I am one of the slowest people you ever met. I just naturally that way. But and it's actually a great totem. And the shaman, once everybody stopped laughing, she said, think about the snail for a second. It can live anywhere. It can exist anywhere. It can eat anything for food. It always has its home on its
yeah,
back. And its home is the shape of the universe. Like
yeah,
it carries the universe with it. So I love my little snail. So I've always been slower. I didn't graduate. I didn't finish university until I was 27. I didn't have my first real relationship till I was 26. My first child I had at 36. I've just
yeah.
always been really slow.
Oh
Like
my
I
God, I
dropped
was
out of
35. I was 35 with my first child.
really.
Yeah.
I think it's becoming more common.
And the second 36 because it was very like, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
So, um, and I dropped out of college and went skiing for a while. So anyway, after I finished college at 27,
Yeah.
just dumb luck, I had a connection opportunity to work for this company in New York that was doing a podcast. What? No, there were no podcast then. A radio talk show.
Yeah.
The podcast for those of us with gray hair.
Yep.
Um, and it was really interesting. It was called The Working Mom on the Run. And it was about empowering women. I've always been really connected to the feminine. My mom was technically a single mom. She met my stepdad that I told you about when I was about 6, but he was from Sweden. He was a Swedish guy, and as maybe you can attest to, Swedish men are not very emotional, not very outgoing, rather reserved emotionally. So I didn't get a lot of interaction with my stepdad. Later in life, we became very, very, very close.
Yeah.
But as a child, I think he just looked at me as this thing he had no idea what to do with. um, I don't know where I was going with that. We were talking
So, but
about.
from New York,
Mm.
how did you
So
end up in LA? Like,
so that's it, it was all I in my past life I called it dumb luck, and now I realize it was this grand plan that I had so I could learn these lessons along the way.
yeah,
So that job in New York, for a reason I had to leave, and my mom was living in Florida, Jacksonville, Florida at the time,
yeah,
and I went down to live there, and I got a job at a TV station there as a cameraman, as a news cameraman. And this was right when digital editing was first starting.
mm,
And I had had this internship in Austin where they had one of the first digital editors, so they'd let me play with it. I had
mm,
experience with it. This news station that I was working at had bought one of these, but nobody knew how to use it. So it was sitting in a room not getting used. And it was the station's 50th anniversary, and they wanted to do this big special 1 hour thing, and that kind of thing was easier to do digitally than analog. And so they asked if I would do it, and so I edited it. There was a production company in Jacksonville that did shows for the Travel Channel. The
yeah,
owner of that company saw that special and immediately called the news station to ask who had edited it On the following Monday, I was in talking to him, and 2 weeks later, I was working for him.
Wow.
And yeah, it was cool because the first show I did was a 13-part series on Hawaii. So I got to spend 10 weeks producing in Hawaii. And then the executive for that show, there was one show where the owner of the company had to go. And so the executive from the network had to work directly with me,
Mm,
and it was the last show that we had to deliver, and he told me what he wanted, and at the end, literally at the end of that work week on Friday, I delivered him the show,
mm,
and I came in Monday morning to an email that said, you need to call me as soon as you get in, see the notes below. And this is an hour long show, and I scrolled
mm.
down, and in an hour long show he had one note. And from a television perspective, this is unheard of. For a network executive to give you one note on an hour-long show is just
Yeah.
unheard of. I mean, the typical is pages, like
Yeah.
a notebook. And so I called him, and he said, "You really need to be in LA. I've got a couple companies that I can line you up with." And so about a month later, I was on a road trip with my best friend out to LA and
Yeah.
landed in Venice Beach and spent the next 18 years there in the TV business, mostly editing, but producing, directing and stuff as well.
And you helped me with the green plant and everything here.
I love it. See how it changes. Do you
Yeah.
see how it really
Yeah, I
changes?
actually feel much more like, even if I need to nourish this plant a little bit, I won't tell you about that. All over the place. But still.
And so and there began, because again, I had grown up in the South, which is very deep in Judeo-Christian tradition and judgment and shame, and grew up in that type of environment. However, was a firm believer in it at the time that I left. And even in my mind, I
Yeah.
said to myself, if I ever get into this yoga woo woo shit, I'm packing up and I'm heading back home.
Yeah.
That was my promise to myself. And
Yeah.
that's why I know when I talk to people, I'm like, listen, when your biggest fear is your greatest lesson. And the
Yeah.
sooner you walk into it, the sooner you will experience an evolution. I promise. Because I saw it. Like that was a dead on fear of mine. And
Mm,
and it is the thing that has changed my life so profoundly that I could spend hours writing, days writing, hours talking to you about it, and never fully encapsulate
mm.
the amount of magic I have seen in the last 12, 15 years through this transformation. It's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
You
I
you
know.
know.
I know. And I think as well, what you're saying with today, I think I face 3 to 4 resistance of growth as well, and kind of
Hmm.
expansion. So I had to do some. I actually did some Leland's breath work in between, and then I continue and like pay very attention right now for me to my nervous system, and like, okay, I take a break, change the my energy in my body, and then
Right.
I can take the action again. Because I just want to add that as well. Right now, all the planets is going direct. It's go time right now. Like,
Yeah,
but also from the right energy within you, so you're not creating a lot from your wounded inner child. Then it's going to.
for sure. And it's really important, I think, to pay attention to this, because the energies, the planets are like the chakras in our body. I mean,
Yeah.
they are big bodies in our solar system, and we know different types of energy, gamma rays, radiation rays, all magnetic waves, light waves. All these particles are flowing through our solar system all the time.
Yeah.
And whether we can actually define it or not is not really important to me in this discussion. It's just to recognize that a particle of energy on one side of some bigger body is
Mm,
going to be different on this side
mm.
as it passes through. The one thing we know that's true in this universe
Yeah.
is that with every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction.
Yeah. Exactly.
So
With the
just
polarity.
agree with that. That on this side, the energy particle is one way. On this side, there is some change that happened. We don't deny that. And I think that things like astrology, we have had, like the chakras, we've had this innate knowledge all along.
Yeah.
And we didn't try to define it. We just said, here's the result of it. If these planets are aligned this way, this is the energy that we are within.
Yeah.
And we've understood it for a long time. And again, it's science. This is real science. This is not
It is.
some magical spell.
No. No. True. So, I would like to go a little bit more into your story before we can dive into
Mhm.
your
Of course.
perception and perspective, I would say, with consciousness and all of that jam. But um, I mean, you've been through a lot. When I was going to say reading, but I'm reading something that you shared with me. Um, it's like, wow, I would like to go into the part where you felt lonely, kind of,
Mm,
because I think that can help others that actually also, I always felt alone, like
yeah, yeah.
up until recently, because now I found more of my people.
Your tribe. Your
Yep.
tribe sent up the smoke signal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think it's one of the most common emotional experiences out there, right? There's
Yeah.
more people than ever in the world, and the loneliness is at its highest level.
Yeah.
Like, why? And again, I recognized at some point because I did a lot of past life regression and Akashic record investigations as well.
Mm,
And a lot of those experiences, once I stepped out of the emotion and started
mm,
looking at this with a more scientific process, I recognized this theme of loneliness.
yeah.
And I believe that free will is not the freedom to have choice, right? I think the freedom to have choice is the result of what will really is. And free will is the ability to expand perception. You can choose to perceive as much or as little as you want. If I perceive this much information, I'm going to make all my decisions and all my choices within these boundaries.
Yeah.
If I expand that perception, I have a lot more options.
Mm, true.
And so it's really about perception.
Mm,
And perception is the freedom we have. We can choose to perceive anything the way we want to. Um, I realized through this process that a lot of my perception was programming. I'd been
mm,
programmed to believe that way, to see things a certain way. So I think with going through this process, being able to step back and look from a macro level rather than the micro emotional level,
mm,
look at the macro energetic level of possibility, right? Because in the universe, we're not talking about possibilities. Once you look at the universal scale, we're looking at probability.
mm.
It's not just that things are possible. In the great whole universe, if you use the entire universe, anything that you can think of is possible.
Mm.
That's just basic statistics, basic
Yeah.
math. The bigger your sample group, the more probable anything could be, right?
Mm,
So if you look at the planet just by itself, sure, there's some things that we could say aren't that probable within that group.
mm.
Expand that out to the universe,
Yeah.
everything becomes probable.
Yeah.
And so when I stepped back and looked at this loneliness, stepped away from the emotion, because I mean, it led me to the edge of suicide, right? I mean,
Mm,
I was ready to die. I was so lonely, I was ready to die. And the problem with that loneliness is that the internal dialogue takes us down, right?
Mm.
And part of the issue we have in society is there's a stigma on these conversations
Yeah.
about mental wellness, because this isn't mental illness. Mental illness is something different. We're talking about our mental wellness,
Mm.
because most of it is caused by society, right?
Mm.
Saying you have to fit into this small little center of what society is, or else you're ostracized. And
Mm.
if you were out on the tangent somewhere, if you were out on the peripheral, it's very lonely out there.
Yeah.
And and the funny part is nobody really fits in that definition of what society says perfect is, right? Nobody does. There's people that pretend to be and give a face
Exactly.
that they
And have
do.
masks and all of that and
There's
perform.
nobody that fits it. And so if you're trying to reach some goal that is completely unattainable, I mean, of course you're going to get sad and frustrated and angry, and I mean that sounds like depression to me.
Mm.
However, that's what I mean. Like, there's a really
Yeah.
big difference between mental wellness
Yeah.
and mental illness. And so I recognize that this loneliness was the emotional of it, and letting myself live in the conversation, because it takes you to I'm not worthy. Not
Mm.
just that I'm not worthy, but I'm a burden.
Mm.
Like and then it becomes very easy to say, of course it'd be better if I was dead.
Mm.
Everybody hates me. Like, I make every experience I go into worse. Every time I try to fix something, it just gets worse,
Mm.
right? And I ostracized myself from anybody, and it's been a year and a half. I mean, well, about a year, and I mean, there was a good 3 months of that where I mean, I rarely got out of bed. I mean, it was full on. You know, I it was terrible.
Yeah.
and and so I understand anybody that's in that place of loneliness. It is unbearable. I I don't know. I do now know that I am an extremely powerful being. I can withstand a lot of pain, a lot of pain, and that's really hard for me to admit. I don't think I've ever said it out loud before. I have been, I've been through a lot, as you said.
Yeah.
And so in that moment, I said, you can take a little bit more, because this doesn't have to be this way.
Mm.
And you can be a facilitator of change. But we got to get in what I call airplane mode, right? You got to put on your mask first.
Yeah.
You need to be able to breathe before you can put anyone else's mask on, or even help them. And so that began, and once I got out of the emotional state, diaphragmatic breathing, let me just say, is a big part of it.
Yeah.
We can talk about that at some point. But once I got out of the emotional state and was able to look at what does this loneliness really mean, and I'm like,
Mm.
this is a lesson. Like, this is an opportunity for you to learn, and it's not necessarily about changing something, changing that suffering, changing the pain, because life is up and down. You have to have bad to understand what good is.
Yeah.
You have to be happy you have to feel pain to understand what elation is.
Mm.
The universe's ways, we are never going to avoid that. What my journey has taught me so far is I don't have to stay in the emotional state, right? I my personal phrase is, when we have an experience, we go into unconscious reaction. And
Mm.
so my goal is to move from unconscious reaction into action with conscious intent,
Mm.
as soon and naturally as possible, without any pressure. And all that takes is just the simple thought of recognizing I'm having an emotion. That emotion is a portal to a lesson, an
Yeah.
opportunity to learn something. Once I have had that thought, I am being conscious. I have shifted the modality. I have stopped the downward spiraling conversation that takes
Yeah.
us into that chasm of hell, what we define as hell, right?
So before you continue, like, was there a specific moment in time that you remember when you started to shift these thoughts and be more conscious aware? Or what was it back then? This can help, someone listening or know someone who's
Mhm.
actually feeling depressed and not feeling well. If from your story, this is your story, but if there was something, do you remember if there was?
There were multiple, and in my writing, I talk about how we have an expectation of this epiphanal moment where there's lightning bolts and change, and sure, there were moments of change and knowledge awakening, but it's the whole journey. I
Yeah.
often bring up the Iliad and the Odyssey, right? Odysseus, the day he took the rope off the piling and started sailing, had no idea what was going on, what
Mm.
he was about to do, right? And when he met the Cyclops, he had no idea of the tale that he was creating that was going to be a I understand Homer wrote it, but if this person was real, this tale that was going to be so important to all of humanity for so long, right?
Mm.
That is really the human journey, the journey that we're
Mm.
all on. We are all on our own odyssey, and we cannot perceive it in the moment, right? And that's why I believe the more we stay in a place of action rather than reaction, then we move through those moments of suffering, of difficulty, more fluidly. I'm not saying the suffering goes away, but those periods last much less. I mean, I used to go for months, if not years,
Mm.
in these downward spirals. Now, I mean, at my worst, over the last, let's say, 6 years, maybe a 2 day downward spiral,
Yeah,
which is miraculous. We're
it
not going
is.
to, we are human beings, and you can't put the weight on yourself that that this is going to happen overnight. This is an odyssey, this is a journey.
Yeah.
We need to broaden perspective in order to understand. And we can't broaden perspective, and you're not going to, I wasn't going to find it laying in my bed. I knew
Mm.
that. I knew that I didn't want to go back into the film and TV industry,
Yeah.
and so I needed to find something. And really the biggest thing for me was telling myself, you just got to take a step.
Mm.
Whatever it is today, take that step. I love the beach, and at this time I was in Jacksonville, Florida, and I still had my truck. I was living in my truck. I'm like,
Mm.
you love the beach, just go to the beach.
Yeah.
And at least you're at the beach. You still have a boogie board. Go sit out in the water and ride some waves.
And something to get the context as well. I mean, you left LA and the film industry, wasn't it because you also felt it wasn't kind of, I don't know, you were done with it? Like it's there have to
Yeah,
be more, or what
I
did
mean,
you
there was a specific event that was the catalyst. I mean, I had left one time about 4 years before and tried to leave, and they just pulled me back in. And so it had been going on, but one day I woke up, and I was a single dad, had my kids on my own at this point, and was in a hurry, and the nanny was a little late, and I, like, as I'm running out the door, giving the nanny instructions on what to give the kids for lunch and, field trips or whatever it may be. And I'm halfway to work before I finally calm down enough to have a conscious thought. And in that was one of those moments, because I
Yeah.
thought, wait a minute, I'm driving to work. I'm sitting in LA traffic to go to this job that I really don't even like anymore.
Mm.
And I'm going to this job really so that I can pay a nanny to take care of my kids, so that I can go to the job, so that I can pay the nanny,
Mm.
to take care of my kids so that I can go. And I'm like, nope, no, I'm done. This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I'm losing life. Like at that point, I look back and I couldn't remember the last 18 years. I mean, I could remember the shows that I worked on. I could remember the show that I did that I worked for 47 hours straight on without ever going to sleep or home. I could remember those moments. I remembered my kid's birth. I remembered, one or two moments with them, but at this point they're 9 and 6 years old.
Mm.
I'm like, how much more am I going to do this? And it's not just my kids, it's you. You
Yeah.
haven't had any life for 18 years. And that was when, and yeah, so a month after that, I was literally in a U-Haul truck with my kids on the way to Florida. That was
Yeah.
that was how I left LA.
Yeah.
And that was really the beginning of deciding that there had to be a different way. It was time to shift. I either needed to I either needed to die and be done with it, or I needed to be proactive and do something.
Yeah.
And I just so you know, I think it's really important that we talk about suicide, that we talk
Yeah.
about it as what it is, that it's not passing on. Or I teach my kids, don't, like, someone died. They didn't pass, they didn't go away. Someone died. Death is
Yeah.
important. Death is really, really, really important. Right? You nothing can grow if something doesn't die. And this is an important concept spiritually for our energetic body. We have to. That's why that idea of loneliness. Once I got that lesson out of the way, that of course there's 20 more lessons to learn, but it created space for those.
Yeah.
And I can promise you that the new lessons were way better than that loneliness lesson, because that loneliness lesson, as most people know, sucks.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think what you're saying about death as well, next weekend, or this weekend, I mean, the 28th, it's 9 years since my dad died. And when he was at the palliative care,
Mhm.
um when he was brought from here and to there, they were like, okay, maybe 2 weeks, but he was like, no, no, no. I have some more time here. So 2 months. They were like,
Uh-huh.
who, like, this is
Right, 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 right.
I wasn't surprised though. But I remember I took a decision. The children were, my son was 4 years and very close to him, and my daughter was 5, turning 6. So they were there a lot, and my son knew this was on a Friday, and he wanted to go there, and he packed his Spider-Man, you know, bag with his toys,
Mhm.
and was standing at the door and like, let's go to grandfather. And I was like, okay, yep. And I called my mom. She was there. She was like, yes, he's awake, but you can wait till tomorrow. And my son was like, I'm ready. Okay, we go. And I felt like we have to go. So
Right.
we went, and he went inside, and my dad was kind of half sitting in the bed, and he could still talk. Hmm. And they were looking at his toys and, just chit chatting. And after, I don't know, 10 minutes or something, my son was done. He was like, I'm going out to look at the fish, because there was like a aquarium outside.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I was like, okay. And I talked to my dad. And if I remember correctly, because then my brother came, but I think this was the last time he properly could speak,
Mhm.
more than, like,
Right,
so my
right, right.
son knew. He knew that was his goodbye. So he knew. This is why I am sharing it, because children are so intuitively, like, there's a spiritual open in that age. And for me, I wanted them to know that dying is part of the cycle. It's nothing dangerous. Like,
Right,
it's
right, right.
it's like, and I wanted them to know that he's here now, and then when he's gone, it's not like he's you know, when you say that, or you hear someone say he's gone what, gone fishing, gone where, gone on a
Yeah,
trip, like,
yeah,
I don't
exactly.
believe in that. That's not my belief. So I'm actually really proud that I was back then, because that was one of my biggest awakening after that, after his death. That I trusted my intuition, and had the children there to, like, I don't know how to say, but so they could be in the process before
Of
he died.
course.
Yeah.
Because look, a horror movie is scary as hell the first time you watch it.
Yeah.
But if you watch it over and over and over again, like you start laughing at those
Yeah.
moments that terrified you before.
Yeah.
The more we have conversation, the more we collectively have story together, and remembering that part of conversation is listening. I think
Yeah.
that's a really important part for today's culture. The more we expand and the more we can have easier conversations about these things that we think are so terrifying that aren't.
And I'm pretty sure, because my dad, this was his, like, what do you say? His biggest fear was, this is his words, like ending up like a vegetable and not
Right,
being able to walk, because when he
right.
came in there, he had a wheelchair, and not taking care of himself. But he was joking with the staff. They were like, I could hear him when I was there. There was a lot of, like, because that was his, I think, also cope mechanism to, joke about, like, be very like, this is my wheelchair, look here, blah blah blah, explain. He was very,
Oh
like,
yeah. I mean,
explaining, but
that's a
joke.
very male, that's a very
Yeah, maybe it
normal
is.
male
Maybe it
modality. Yeah.
You're right. Uh, yeah, I never thought about it that way, but yes. And I'm also sharing this because maybe someone can relate and feel shame about it. But the night when he was leaving his body, I would say, when he was dying, me and my brother and my mom was there, and we were sitting outside his room. I remember that the noise from him was awful. Like, I didn't even know how it could sound, but it was
Mhm.
awful. But so for me, I started to laugh. Like, I I went, like, we, the three of us, started to plan his way of funeral that he wanted,
Mhm.
and his desire about it. And I started to joke with someone in the staff, and it was morbid. It was really morbid, but it was also so much beauty, because that was what he would have done.
Right,
It
right,
kind of taught me that. I don't know.
right. Yeah.
So I
No,
just
and
wanted to bring that out
course,
as
we
well.
learn. I mean, as a parent, we try to teach our kids. We tell them over and over again. However, what we do, how we act, is what our kids are going to learn from. You can
Yeah,
talk to them till you're blue in the face, and they're going to sit there like this and go,
yeah.
So,
God,
which brings up
with
a
emotion.
really interesting point that you brought up about your son,
Yeah,
because it was part of my understanding and definitely my evolution into fully believing that we are conscious energy
yeah,
and we choose to incarnate. And part of what led me there was real the realization that when we are born, the moment of birth, we are as close to that energetic state as we're ever going to get.
yeah,
Because after that moment of birth begins the no, don't touch that. No, don't do that. No, you have to be
yeah,
this. No, you have to be that. And I thought about that during my process, and that was one of the things that led to me saying, I need to eliminate the parts of my belief system that are programming. I need
yeah,
to decide what I really believe in, and that is how I walk through the world from now on.
yeah,
And so I mean, one of the biggest tools that I use in helping me regain my consciousness,
yeah.
my personal authority, was spending a couple months figuring that out. What really is my belief system?
Mm,
What is really, really important to me, right? Because part of it too was I didn't want to be in television anymore. I didn't want to do this thing anymore. Part of everybody who knew Bill, that was who Bill was, and that's not who Bill is at all, at
No.
all. Like that's just what I do.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden I'm like, okay, well, what is it you want to do? I
Yeah.
don't know. How do you know what you want to do if you don't know what you believe in?
Yeah.
All right, well, let's figure out what you
Yeah.
believe in and go from there. And then I didn't have to figure out what I wanted to do because as I figured out what I believed in, the path just kept unrolling in front of me,
Yeah.
right? It just led me there naturally. And that was part of the lesson that I learned from how I ended up in LA. My very first, I didn't even tell you about this. My how I got my very first job in radio television was in radio. I was in Austin, Texas, bartending at this little hole in the wall bar. And this woman and her boyfriend used to come in all the time. And, I'm a pretty magnanimous person. I always had fun with them, always joking. She loved me to death. And one day Paula comes in and says, "Hey, I work for this radio station. We're looking for a new person to do this promotion thing. It's like 2 hours, twice a week. Are you interested?" Because there was this girl that was going out on the street on her own and they wanted a guy to go out with her. And
Yeah.
I'm like, sure, sure, I'll
Yeah.
do it. And that was my entry.
Yeah. Which is
Just
beautiful because it's also like you never know the next person you meet. I mean, on the street or where, like, however, wherever you say, can be someone that is really, really important in your life.
100%,
Yeah.
100%.
You never know.
Every, every person is a pirate chest, and you have
Yeah.
the key. It's
Yeah.
your choice to open it or not,
It
and
is.
it's your choice when you open it to decide if what you see is gold and treasure, or if what you
Exactly.
see are
Yeah.
cross and skull bones, skull and crossbones.
We are actually, Bill, because we talked about as well. I want to record more episodes with you where we also go into more the like chakra, the spiritual stuff, the consciousness, and a lot of stuff. But I wanted this episode to be about your story a lot.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Mhm.
I mean, I'd like to put out there that what the path that I'm on now is to facilitate opportunity for others to grow.
Yeah,
And so this is a very young project. The haven that we're creating here in Panama is I mean, we've got a workshop built so far and nothing else. So it's not technically open. The website's still being developed, but the website is on there, is on the web, accessible, and there is a way to contact me.
great.
And anybody that wants to contact me, this is what I'm here for, and I am open to that. And so it's thoc.org, the House of Energy Consciousness, but just the letters THOEC, .org.
I will
Again,
have the link as well. Yeah, I love that.
it's under construction. However, the important fact is if there's anybody watching that wants to get in touch with me, they are
Yeah,
more than welcome, and that's what I'm here for.
I love that. Is there anything else you want to like leave our conversation with for the listener?
Yeah, yeah. Let me leave on this point from a scientific standpoint. We live in a universe that is functioning exactly as it has to, exactly perfectly, right? If
Mm.
we pulled one single atom, one molecule, if there was a magic hand that could reach into this universe and pull one molecule out all of a sudden, the entire universe would collapse,
Mm.
right? I mean, that's just pure science.
Mm.
So we live in this place that is functioning absolutely perfectly. So, what I want to leave everyone with is remember, you are not separate from this universe.
Mm.
You are perfect in every single moment. I understand that emotion and personal perception can bring us down and tell you a story that you're not. But remember, even the word imperfect,
Yeah,
I am perfect. That's what I got.
I love it. And I'm patient. No, impatient is also I'm patient.
I am patient.
Yeah. After you share the first one with me, I was like, oh, this is awesome.
It's powerful.
It is.
Yeah. So yeah, and I'd love to come back. Just let me know because
Yes.
I'd love to talk more about process and
Yeah,
that
we
sort
have
of thing.
to. There's a lot to like,
Yeah, it's a big universe.
it is. It is. But I want to say to everyone's been listening that we talked about this before as well. The importance of wherever you are in your journey to take, and I would love for you to think about it if you have listened to a lot of the episodes on Soul Conversations, that take your nuggets and start to play with it. Be curious, because your journey is your journey. And I'm no fan of gurus and putting people on pedestal, and I know you are not either. So to really truly your way of like unfolding and discovering, and it's your way, like
Yeah,
that's the right way for you who is listening. And
100%.
Bill, I love you. I think you are an amazing human being, and I'm just so grateful that we are reconnected. But yeah,
The the energy is 100% reciprocated.
yeah,
I am joyous that the time has come for this to reignite.
yeah. And
All
for
right.
everyone listening, please subscribe as well and leave us question, thoughts, whatever. Share this episode as well. Thank you
Yeah,
so much.
my pleasure. Much love.